keeps a perpetual cycle of poverty in existence. A huge amount of money is spent by very low income earners on energy needs like kerosene or firewood, so which goes up in smoke every night, just trying to see and cook and heat their homes, which enables them to, which inhibits them from saving money and moving forward economically. The air pollution that's created by these issues, these sources of energy, are very, very, very toxic, and it kills more women and children than AIDS and malaria combined. So when I read this article in Time magazine, it really stopped me in my tracks and made me sit up and take notice about this issue called energy poverty. And as I made more and more inquiries around it, I realized that hardly anybody really knew or could articulate what the problem was and how it affected so many people on the planet. So I invented something for the UN to be used within refugee camps. It's a solar powered illumination source for refugees. And that was fairly successful. And I got involved in different organizations and committees around the world to talk about the issue and design and develop solutions for the issue of energy poverty. But I wasn't satisfied. So in 2015, I ideated this program, what we now call SolarBuddy, and launched in 2016. Now we're operational in 19 countries, and we're generally regarded as the largest solar light provider to children in the world in 4 very short years. So there's a number of other things I do, but we're focused on SolarBuddy tonight. So it's great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. Looking forward to hearing some really interesting questions. I'm an open book. There's no secret, so fire away, and I'll give you the most honest and direct answer I can.
Thanks so much, Simon. Energy poverty is a really crucial issue that sometimes we overlook, so I welcome you to share all your knowledge you have to do with that. So up next we have David Conti from #GoKindly. Can you tell us a bit about your business?
Yeah, thanks Lane, and thanks for having myself. And as a Monash alumni, I'm really impressed that you're all here. I actually started my career after completing a degree in accounting and finance in Monash. It's a bit hazy because I enjoyed Green Week too many times during my stay at Monash. But in terms of GoKindly is really a business that Laura and I, my wife and I, created to give back and have more meaning in our life. So we're accountants by trade and still are. And in terms of over the years, we always spoke about wanting to do something more, but we never knew what that was. So we really started in terms of GoKindly with a blank sheet of paper talking about values and what we wanted a business to represent. So we started on that basis, and then we worked from there in terms of what cause we wanted to support. And GoKindly is a bed and bath business that supports women experiencing homelessness. And the reason why we decided on supporting, in particular, women experiencing homelessness was just the fact that we could see it every day. And that was quite confronting. You know, we live in the wealthiest country in the world, or if not, certainly one of the most. And I always couldn't understand why there was so many people that were homeless. And unfortunately today, as we're speaking, it's getting worse, and especially in particular for women that are quite vulnerable. So the more we dived into it, the more that we wanted to do something to help. So really it was a business that was created to take an ordinary product and to have extraordinary impact. Laura's story is very closely connected to the why in GoKindly. She actually used a number of services through her university days from actually just getting food to getting support in terms of accommodation. So her connection is very strong, whereas mine is probably more driven by the fact that I strongly believe in terms of, for us to overcome, especially women experiencing homelessness, a large percentage, over 40%, actually suffer from or have experienced domestic violence. So for me personally, it's important that men step up, and that's part of what drives, I guess, Go Kindly. And our journey so far has been incredible. It's a very short journey so far. We've only been around for 15 months, but we've donated $8,000. In fact, we'll tip over to $10,000 come next month, and then donating over 100 pillows as well to women experiencing homelessness and kids. So that's a bit about me and why we exist. And yeah, I'll certainly dive a bit deeper as we go through today.
Thanks, Dave. It's great to hear that you saw something, or you thought of something that you saw every day and you did something about it. I think a lot of us don't take that extra step, so it's really great to hear from you about that. So finally, we have Sarah Brown from Purple House. Sarah, can you tell us about your role in Purple House?
Sure. So I'm in Alice Springs. Purple House is an Aboriginal community-controlled health service. It started because west of Alice Springs, right out in the desert, people who lived on that country for generations were being forced to pack up their lives and move to Alice because they had end-stage renal failure. So they had a diagnosis from the doctors that their kidneys were buggered and that they needed to come to be run up to a hospital 3 times a week to have their blood cleaned. And so some people were doing that, but they were finding it really hard. They were traditional Aboriginal people who'd only had contact with non-Aboriginal people for like 30 years at that stage. English was their 5th or 6th language, and everything about what made life meaningful was around a piece of country and sacred sites and family and being able to hunt and to look after your sacred sites. So they had the worst survival rates on dialysis in the world. So they said, well, why can't we have a dialysis machine in Kintore, 7 hours drive west of Alice, and then we can look after people ourselves, and those important people can stay on country. At the time, this is the year 2000, there was only dialysis machines in Alice Springs Hospital and in Darwin, and nothing anywhere else. And so when they went and knocked on the doors of politicians and asked for help, the politicians told them that they were dreaming, that Kintore was too remote, the water was no good, the power was no good, they'd never get dialysis nurses to help them, and they should just give up. So they got together and they painted some extraordinary collaborative paintings, and they had an auction at the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Roy and HG were the auctioneers, and they raised $1 million in one night in year 2000 money, not 2020 money. So Kerry Stokes, who owned Channel 7 at the time, he bought the Kirikora men's painting for $340,000. So what that meant was that here were people, the poorest people in Australia, in the most remote part of the country, who had $1 million worth of independent money and just one aim, which was to try and find a way to get people who needed their kidneys weren't working and they needed their blood cleaned, to be able to have that done on country. And so they formed a kidney committee and they asked me to help. So I've been around since January 2003, and my first jobs were a constitution and a bank account and charity status. And we started to work together to work out. I was a nurse, but I was a bush nurse. I wasn't a dialysis nurse. I hadn't even seen a dialysis machine. But what the independent money meant was that people could build a service that had their cultural priorities right at the centre of everything. So we did our first dialysis in Kintore and Alice in 2004. And today we've got dialysis in 18 remote communities. We've got support staff in Alice, Adelaide, Perth, Kalgoorlie and Darwin. We've got about 170 staff all up, and many of those are Aboriginal staff from remote communities. And as it's grown and people have had a place of their own and a structure which is based on good governance and cultural priorities, other side projects have come out of that. So we've got a really successful social enterprise focusing on making bush medicines and using bush medicine plants to make organic products. And last year, the patients developed the first ever real-time language translator in an Aboriginal language. So they've taught this app. And so at the moment, it's just on our laptops, but by July, I should be able to talk into my phone and it'll speak out in Pintabee. So it's a real story about people power and the fact that people had a problem, came up with their own solution, and then we're able to share it with other communities is really at the heart of this story. In a world where you see more bad news stories than good news stories about Aboriginal health, we've gone from the worst survival rates in the country to the best. So our patients live longer on dialysis than people in Melbourne. And last year they created a Medicare item number for our model. So now every dialysis we do in a remote community, we can claim Medicare for. So it's a big onion of a story with art and bush and language and culture and all sorts of things thrown in, and then nurses and machines that clean blood and all. So that's our story.
Thanks, Sarah. It's a really interesting story, going from selling a painting to have a fully operational health clinic and that employs 170 staff. I think that's really impressive, and you addressed a lot of your story in there, so thank you so much. I think most importantly, to start off my questions, why do you think it's important to be part of an ethical business as opposed to any other sort of business? Would Simon like to start?
Okay, yeah, I'll start. Ultimately, for me, it's business is no point in being business for the sake of being a business. If you're financially driven or financially focused, then for me, it's ultimately soulless and otherless. I've always tried and successfully sometimes had social enterprises and developed social enterprises. Has always been a focus of mine. A purpose-driven business is a happier place to work. It's a more productive place to work. It's a more cohesive place to work. You get better outcomes, and you obviously create a greater amount of impact. And that's my mindset. I studied economics in London, and it was always towards that side of business. And it's always intrigued me and fascinated me ever since. And I think the whole world is shifting in that direction now, thankfully. The big business for huge profit are changing their mindsets, and I see that every day in the work that we do with SolarBuddy, which is very refreshing. But ultimately, for me, a purpose-driven business is just a happier, nicer place to work, which produces better results for everybody within the business and who you work for to help with the business. That's how I feel.
Great. David, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think what Simon said is very relevant in terms of, from my point of view. I think if I think back in terms of my career, I actually went to London to work in a few investment banks, pursuing to make $1 million. And it was actually quite a pivotal moment for me in my career. One, I figured out very quickly, culturally, I didn't fit in. I worked at Goldman Sachs, and just it was confronting in terms of, for me, in terms of the egos, the selfishness, and the greed. And it was, after that I started thinking more about what I wanted to do. It took a bit of time, but so I think for us, it's being really proud of what we do on a daily basis. If Go Kindly wasn't a social enterprise, and we donate 50% of our profits to charities that support women experiencing homelessness. If that wasn't the case, I don't think Go Kindly would actually exist, because I'd just be back at working in finance, turning the wheel. And I think, you know, it helps us get up each day, keep on going, driving for improvements. But yeah, come the time to make a donation, it's fabulous, like, to pass that on and to hear about the stories and the challenges that people face. You quite often live in a bubble. And it's, yeah, again, really confronting in terms of what women especially have to deal with and experience. So yeah, so for me, it's about certainly that meaning and driving that impact. But yeah, it's a bit of a journey, and it's a balance too. And in my view, I think, you know, we're able to do this because in many sense we've built a career with the financial means to do it. I think to do it straight off the bat, wouldn't say it's impossible, and Simon probably can jump in more and share his story more, but I think it would be challenging. Like, we are a model that gives back more than other businesses. So that's a hindrance in perhaps the short-term greater meaning. I think, though, in the medium and long term, it pays dividends, and we're building a community that supports us greatly, and that's wonderful to see as well.
Great. Sarah?
So I guess I never thought I would be running a business, you know, that in a way I'm coming at it from the other side, because I was a nurse. I was providing services as a remote nurse. So I've had to grow business skills along the way as we've grown. But certainly, I guess for us then, part of the challenge is this big monster of a health service industry, which creates hospitals, and hospitals tend to, well, no one likes being in hospital at all, but it's better set up for like mainstream people. It's not set up so much for people on the fringes. But so for us, absolutely, it's been about coming at a problem from a different way to get a better solution. But then there's other parts of the business where there's really clear ethical decisions to be made. And one which you might have seen in the media of late is the Aboriginal art industry, which is at the basis of where we started, because we started with an auction of paintings. But there's a whole heap of unethical business in Australia, with people making money from Aboriginal people who paint their stories, and a whole lot of non-Indigenous, non-community controlled organisations and businesses who exploit people for that. So that, I guess, the ethical business comes in a few different ways for us. We're primarily a health service, and health services tend to have, if they're not for profits, have strong ethical basis. But there's ethical decisions to be made all the time in the way that you do business, the way that you look after staff. I couldn't have imagined being in the same job for 17 years. I think before this, my record was 2. But it's kind of ruined me for anything else, because I've had the luxury of, with the directors, building up the kind of organisation that I want to jump out of bed and go to work every day. And so I think that the advantages of having a sound base for your business with strong values and a strong mission, which then means that you can attract the best people to come and work with you and be really proud of what you achieved. You know, life's not a dress rehearsal. There's no time to muck around with doing stuff that doesn't make a difference. And there's so much to do.
That's so true. And I think we all here really want to make a difference. And that's why we're kind of looking for your insight into how we can do that. And with that, Navia has a question to all of our panelists. She says, entrepreneurship is an incredible opportunity to create and forge your own path in meaning. However, with it come incredible challenges and adversities. What was the mindset that you adopted in these challenges, and what ultimately motivated you to persevere? Anyone want to start?
Yeah, I'll go again. So for me, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I grew up in a family business that was a national business, and entrepreneurship was just sort of in my blood, I guess. Shifting that to social entrepreneurship was quite an interesting shift in the dynamics of my upbringing. But I just, hang on, we've got another question coming. Hang on 2 secs. But the challenge is, I embrace the challenges. I love the challenges. I love the excitement that overcoming challenges provides. And just today, Joanna and I had a conversation about a challenge, didn't we? And how we're going to attack it and try and overcome it and implement it into our programs and our organization. If life isn't a challenge, then you're going backwards as far as I'm concerned. And that's probably a bit of a cliche, but if we're gonna make huge strides in the work that we want to do, and if hopefully that's purpose over profit and all the other things, then you are going to face challenges and adversities, but that's part of the fun. You've got to embrace it and deal with them, and nothing in life that you want to achieve that's greater than your own purpose is easy. So you've got to be prepared to take the good with the bad and take the punches and get up in the morning and go again, because ultimately it's not about you, it's about the people that you're working for and the children you're working for in our case. And that's how we persevere.
Nice. David?
Yeah, I think on that theme, I think for me, I've spoken to Laura about this on a number of occasions, but sometimes you need friction to push you towards change. Even now, so good example for us is the coronavirus. Like, it's hit us hard as a business. Like, people just got their money under their beds, I believe. But they're really, people are tightened up, and understandably, like, a lot of uncertainty. So, well, what do you do in this situation? So, well, two big things for us at the moment is that, one, it's led to a campaign that's got a lot of traction unexpectedly about supporting small businesses called I Love Australian, that Laura started. And so we're actually going to launch a marketplace where small businesses can list their products and services, because it's pretty crowded space, but people want to support small businesses. So that's come out of coronavirus for us, and ultimately we'll be a beneficiary of that. So we'll be able to promote Go Kindly. And the other thing is that reframing in terms of what we want to achieve. So at the moment, are we anticipating record sales this month? No. But do we want to build a bigger community so when things turn around, we can capitalise on that? That's the mindset. So it's trying to reframe it in terms of challenges, in terms of what can you do and what can you control for us.
Sarah?
Yeah, I've completely forgot. I was so engrossed, I've completely forgotten what the question was. But
basically, how do you persevere through challenges that are involved?
Yep. So I guess we were a long shot from the start. We were a group of people from the most remote part of Australia, and a daggy remote nurse who had no idea what dialysis took. Trying to set up a whole new health service, and health is one of the most regulated industries on the planet. So there's been lots of challenges, either with funding or with senior people that we knew and loved, dying, and trying to do our best for people and get them back to where they were. In 2009, the Territory government closed the borders and said it didn't matter if you'd been coming to Alice Springs all your life, if you were over that border in WA, you couldn't come to Alice for dialysis, you'd have to go to Perth, and we had to have a big political campaign over human rights and to try and get people over the border for treatment before they died. But I guess you're right about that bit of grit, creating determination and creativity and getting people working together. And if things were just easy and plain sailing, you know, you'd probably get bored and you go back to being a merchant banker or something. I'd go back to, I do miss squeezing boils, I must say. If anyone comes, I do still, we've got the Purple House in Alice, and it's a bit of a drop-in centre, so you never quite know who's going to pop in to, and I'm still chief toenail cutter, and I've got some Telstra wire clippers, and I've got an old lady who comes in every Friday, and she's growing quite a beard, so she'll come in on Fridays and she'll say, "Come on, Kunga," so Kunga's woman, "Come on, Kunga, you know what to do. What do you think I am, bloody Father Christmas?" So I still get to shave or pluck. I'm chief chin plucker. But I think out of, although it'd be nice not to have quite so many challenges at the moment, I think when there's a challenge, that the best of us pull together to try to see what we can do to make things better. And I think at the moment with coronavirus, you can see that there's extraordinary acts of generosity and kindness, and then there's the Donald Trump supporters.
I think from an entrepreneurial point of view, one of the most valuable lessons I was taught as a young entrepreneur back in many years ago now, was if you're not prepared to take that extra step, break down that extra wall, challenge yourself that extra yard, and worry about that extra thing, then you're not prepared. And if you look at those challenges as opportunities, and once you overcome the challenges become an opportunity, that's mindset. That's everything can be termed and considered an opportunity if you have the right mindset. And I strongly believe that. So.
Great. Yeah, I think we do need to work really hard in order to get close to what you guys have achieved. And it takes a certain level of perseverance to be able to do that. And leading off of that, Kiara has a question about one of the challenges you face in the initial part of starting your business. So she says, both Simon and David have touched on having that pivotal point in their life and career that made them want to fix a problem and run a business that has a purpose. From this point, what was the first or most important step you took to start your business?
You go first this time, David.
Me? Yeah, no, you answer them much better, Simon. So if probably I'll answer it like this, not directly, but probably one of my, I don't like saying regrets because I don't necessarily believe in them, but one of the things that I wish we did earlier, and that was start the business earlier. So from that point of view, I think we underestimated and sometimes underestimated just the ability to get things going. And I mean, I was trying to think in terms of if there's one message that I'd like to say to you all is you live in a world right now that you can literally start a business, you know, in 1 minute. And I think that's amazing. Like, given all the challenges that unfortunately you're going to face in particular, I think there's some incredible things that will come out of the coronavirus. And one is clear, the technology uplift across society because everyone's having to bloody work from home. And then that's enormous. So in terms of the first step, to be honest, like that was just getting going, like, and creating something and moving forward and overcomplicating things. I think initially in terms of, we have to have a huge business plan and the like. There's probably different schools of thought, but it's so easy now to create something, say on Facebook, and go ahead and start testing your idea. So I think in terms of what was the first step, yeah, for me, it was just, to be honest, just get going. And I wish that we did that a lot earlier.
I'll second it. The most important step is the first step. Again, it's a cliche, but it's so true. If you're not prepared to take that step, if you're not prepared to step out of your comfort zone, if you're not prepared to take a chance, if you're not prepared to back yourself, people ask me often, "Oh, do you gamble?" No, I don't gamble, but I gamble on myself to do what I need to do. And that's as far as I'm concerned, the most important point is the first step. Do your research, understand what your passion is, what your purpose is, what drives you as a human being. Embrace that as much as possible, but take that first step. And once you've stepped over that line, don't look back. Just keep walking, keep pushing, and that purpose and drive and passion will get you to where you're meant to be.
Great. Sarah, what do you think is the first or most important step you can do?
Jump out of bed in the morning with the wind in your hair and a positive thought in your mind. I mean, for us, the money came first. Most businesses, you start and you're worrying about finding the money to do it. People had the money and then they got to design the model. So I know we were in an extraordinary situation. The bumpy bit was when that money started to run out and we hadn't proved enough of a story to governments to get ongoing support. But yeah, I mean, every problem, there are multiple ways to solve that problem. People out bush talk about, there's the bitumen roadway, which is the road that's on Google Maps that everyone knows. That's the one you're going to get pulled over by the police on. And then there's the bush track, and the bush track is the pretty way, and it's the road that you take if you're driving an unregistered car with no license, or if you want to stop to dig for lizards or witchetty grubs along the way. It'll get you to the same end point, but there's often multiple ways to get to that end point depending on what sort of journey you want to go along the way. So I guess the $1 million was our first bit of bitumen road in a way, but then it got pretty bumpy.
Great. And just with something you've mentioned about money and funding, which is very important to a business, Sarah has a question. What do you think the role of politics is to support entrepreneurship and ethical businesses?
I'm not answering that.
David or Sarah?
My take personally is that change needs to happen from us consumers. I'm a little bit like Simon. I won't talk too much about politics, but at the end of the day, they're a reflection of us because it's a democracy, whether you like it or not, unfortunately. So in terms of when it comes to real change, it's thinking about what you buy, like what you say, what you do, all those little things actually do add up. And I think until people probably, realise that, things won't change. But it'll be really interesting post-corona, like how people have changed. I've got my own theories, but I think there will be a bigger group of people who are thinking a bit more about, oh, well, I should wash my hands just in case I don't want to pass that on to Sarah and Simon, like in terms of thinking a little bit more about what they do, how that can help other people. I think those things will be really interesting to watch and observe. So I would say in terms of instead of the role of politics, I think it's the role of people.
I completely and utterly agree. It's market driven, it's community driven. I obviously there's departments, there's funding, there's grants, there's God knows what else out there. But my personal opinion, and this is very much my personal opinion, is they're far more problematic and troublesome than they're worth. And they act almost, in my personal opinion, they stifle the entrepreneurialism that's required to move faster and innovate and think quicker. But again, that's my personal opinion. And I try and stay out of politics as much as I can. So.
That's fair. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say I would, when you were talking, I was thinking about the role of bureaucrats. So there's the politicians, but then often, I don't know if it's particularly bad in the Northern Territory. I think it possibly is, but there's also that role that bureaucracies play in trying to stifle creativity and individual thought and action. And often it's around bureaucrats trying to protect their own patch and their own budget. And so that can be incredibly frustrating. So I think there's another layer there. There's the politicians who you can vote out. But actually, I think more of an issue often for social change is these bureaucrats who, no matter who's in power officially, are the gatekeepers and who are holding things on and trying to slow things down. And that can be incredible. I've got a list, come the revolution, who's first up against the wall.
I was one of the founding members of the Innovation Committee at UNHCR in Geneva back in the day. And there are some amazing innovators on there, and we had some huge challenges within United Nations High Commission for Refugees to deal with. And ultimately, we just went around in circles because it's a bureaucracy, and failure can often be rewarded with promotion, and because there needs those problems to be continuing to be needed to be solved. Ultimately, that's why I moved out of that arena and set up my own organization that has direct impact. So yeah, I'm not sure about the wall and the people lined up, but I know exactly what you're talking about. So.
And probably jumping in here too, like one thing, if I think of our first 15 months, one of the biggest, I guess, drivers of us growing our customer base was ING supporting us through a Dream Starter program. So hypothetically, if you were to sort of say, would you like a grant of 50 grand, or would you like ING to push your name out there and help you grow awareness? I'd take ING any day of the week. That was enormous. So I think it's great. And I mean, in terms of what's available out there, I think there's a lot of grants out there through private sector, which, yeah, for me, tenfold better in terms of value for probably what we need anyway for social enterprises.
Great. So shifting the conversation then, as you've all addressed being community-driven social change, what is it that we can do as individuals and a community? Like, what are as Andrea puts it, how do we turn these conversations into actions? What can we do?
How do you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what you're doing already is action, which is very commendable. So congratulations for that. We never had anything like this at my university. We had the student bar, that was about it. we saved the world in the student bar, but that was only on Wednesday nights. I think bringing very smart, passionate, determined people together it creates wonderful opportunity for everybody in the room. And then supporting each other through those ideas and having a common goal is obviously a natural progression of that. But the mere fact that you're sat here listening to people like myself and making notes, I see, is a huge thing. And that's, keep on that path. And again, identify your purpose and your passion. We get inundated with people that want to volunteer for SolarBuddy. Joanna started as a volunteer. She's still a volunteer, actually. They always say, how can we volunteer? What can we do? How can we do it? And my answer is always identify your passion, identify your skill set, what you can offer, and what you're going to get most passionate about, and then we can help you help us. And that's probably, again, the biggest thing I can offer you guys. How you turn these concepts into action is being very passionate about what you are going to do. As Sarah mentioned, jumping out of bed every morning with a smile on your face I've managed to do that most of my career, which has been very rewarding. And you are going to have long careers ahead of you. So make sure that career is something that you value highly, that you want to get up and go and work with people that you want to have huge positive impact with. Then it's not work, then it's enjoyable. And just keep that in the back of your mind. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with Simon. Yeah, I think in terms of what Go Kindly is all about is really just taking an ordinary product, like in terms of a bedroom pillow, and sort of saying to people, listen, like, instead of going to Kmart or even buying a pillow elsewhere, why don't you buy this pillow, which will make an impact? So I think that's first and foremost in terms of, I think, buying behaviours. I think, you know, for me, an interesting one, like, and the challenge though for yourselves, like, is that, you know, you don't have the disposable income that, for instance, I have, which is a real issue, I think now, and unfortunately going forward, especially through Corona. But there's still things that you can do. And like Simon said, you know, just even having this conversation is amazing. And I think, yeah, full credit to yourself, Lane, and the team. The other thing is that I think over my journey, I think there's a trap that you think that you might, well, for me anyway, that I could change the world and do it all. And I think over time, maybe as I've gotten older and lost even more and more hair, realise that little things actually matter. And so I think it depends on ultimately who you are and what drives you. But I think if I was to sort of say something to my 20-year-old self, it would be, yeah, just don't underestimate the little things and be proud of those little things as well. Because they're quite often the biggest things. They are now, like in terms of, we've got a young toddler. So, you know, today, for instance, is a sunny day, you get to go for a walk. Like, I don't know who on this call can, you know, remember a time when we'd all be talking about how amazing it is seeing the sun and being able to be outside. So yeah, all of a sudden you start appreciating those little things. So yeah, little things really matter.
And I guess I was thinking about having a keep on asking why. Have a sense of wonder. Don't assume that because things are the way they are, either that they have to stay that way or that there's not a good reason why they are that way. You know, like I think we do lots of work with Rotarians, and we've had lots of Rotarians this time every year. Usually I'm off to a different part of Australia having a chicken dinner with a bunch of old Rotarians. And they're very kind, they're very generous, and they want to help, but they automatically assume that they know what other people need. And it's based on their own culture and their experience in the world. And often they get it really wrong. So I'd say you clever people take the time to listen and really understand what's going on for people, and what it is that they think will improve their lives, and keep thinking and listening. I think that would be my advice.
Yeah, totally agree. Complacency.
Sorry, you were saying something, Simon?
Complacency is a very, very bad thing. And once you articulate your why and you understand your personal why and your organizational why, then that's your cornerstone. That's your stake in the ground. That identifies who you are. But you still have to innovate, continue to innovate, not become complacent. for instance, with COVID as an organization, you know, it hit everybody very, very hard, but we took it as an opportunity, as we always do. We took it as an opportunity to settle the dust in a lot of ways. In 4 years, we've been incredibly busy, and we'd always been asking for 2 or 3 months to finish things and you know, innovate on new things and come together as a team a little bit more on a more regular basis. And that's what we've taken this time to do, and it's been hugely valuable. Unfortunately, it's been forced upon us, and I would never wish for that at all. But we've also innovated our programs to embrace the circumstances of what Australian families are living in at the moment, and that's the birth of the family pack, which we've delivered to hundreds, I think thousands of families across Australia now, to give them the opportunity to engage with our programs as a family, whereas before it was either in schools or in the workplace. So just exactly that, not becoming complacent, understanding why, knowing that it is hard and you have to work really, really, really hard. But once you know what it is you want to do, it's not work and it's fun ultimately. And you do it with a smile on your face, and you enjoy it, then people will want to come along and do it with you, which is so satisfying.
That's some great tips. Since we are Monash future thinkers, we need to address what ethical businesses will be like in the future. How do you think your respective industries are going to change in the future, or are changing, especially given the recent changes in social circumstances with COVID-19? And following off with that, what are the future plans of your business based on what you think? Should we go Sarah first?
Okay. Well, I'm really hoping for a bionic kidney that can just get chucked into people and they can go home again. That's my retirement plan. Look, I think for us, there's still lots more communities where there's no dialysis. We've got the purple truck, which is, you might have seen, we were on Australian Story last year. We got Jack Thompson, the actor, back up to Kakadu, so he's on dialysis now. And we got it to Kakadu, and he dialysed with our patients in Kakadu to make this movie with Simon Baker, which made us lots more friends. But look, I mean, our directors are doing lots of work to reduce the incidence of kidney disease in the future in remote communities. So our business plan is to put ourselves out of business, and we have no problems with that, because what it will mean is that people don't need dialysis anymore. But the actual model of really strong governance and people having some control over their lives is also going in lots of different directions other than just dialysis provision. And so hopefully, you know, maybe one day we won't need the dialysis bit so much anymore, but the employment and training of people and the focusing on cultural mentoring and communication and other ways to value and celebrate Aboriginal culture will become more of the business. So certainly we're well up for a day when the core functions of the organisation disappear, and we may be handing other bits of the business over to other people who that's their core business to carry on with. And it would be a success story to us if we didn't exist.
Great.
Interesting business model.
Really. David?
Yeah, so from our point of view in terms of the industry, so probably just talk more about, I guess, our bedroom pillows. So first off, ours are actually made here in Australia, here in Melbourne actually. So I think that will be a big shift. and will be as a consequence to what is happening at the moment. Obviously, people thinking more about the supply chain. I think, yeah, historically it was certainly more about profits. Now people are realising that they need to weigh that up against what that means in terms of general supply and the risk attached. And we see what happens when you're too dependent on a particular country and the like. So I think that'll be interesting to see what that does do. The other thing is that I think from our point of view, the product itself, so as it stands, you can't really recycle easily in terms of our product. So one of the things that actually took us a while, and we still haven't got anywhere yet, that was to figure out how we can actually encourage the reuse of pillows. So we're exploring probably different fabrics and the like at the moment. So with another manufacturer in New South Wales. So we're just exploring a few ideas, and I think that in itself, so from an environmental point of view, and then the consumer as well will no doubt drive those changes. So I think again they'll be asking in terms of where is it from, what's it made up of, and tell me more about the supply chain. So yeah, so I think those things will definitely have an impact for us now and the next few years.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Firstly, I couldn't be more excited for your futures. When I graduated from university, divesting in fossil fuels wasn't a thing. The ethical business wasn't a thing. Social entrepreneurship wasn't in everyone's narrative. Consumer-driven product innovation wasn't a thing. It was, you buy a can of Coca-Cola, you buy it from Coca-Cola. You get supplied energy, you get it from here. And where you guys are at in your opportunity to grab hold of the social and global issues in the world and have a huge impact on that, I would love to be your age again. Looking back on my career and what I've done, I took an issue called energy poverty that no one knew anything about, and we're still carrying that conversation forward every day. But hopefully in the next few years, there's a platform there that can be developed more to actually solve that global issue, and it's all driven by ethical business, ethical mindset, and all those amazing things. And for you guys, all I see is opportunity. From the future of ethical business and how that is going to be driving the global economy, I feel very reassured with, to be perfectly honest with you. The fact that you can walk into, I've got a can of beer in front of me, that's why I'm going to use this as a reference. You can walk into an off-license, a bottle shop, and buy sustainable beer from a brand of beer manufacturers that has a social conscience and a social driving purpose. That never existed when I was your age. So it's not looking at the thing, the issues of the world is a negative, even though they are currently. It's looking at the issues in the world as how can I be involved in making it a better world. And there's never been a better time to be in this area, to have the support, experience, platform, and consumer-driven decision-making to allow you to be a success in this space. I absolutely categorically know that. So I continually innovate social enterprises. That's where I get excited, and I can't stop doing it. So hopefully we get to work together in the future. But as far as SolarBuddy is concerned, we're just getting warmed up. We've had triple-digit growth every year since we started. We have huge plans for the next 4 to 5 years, leading up to 2030 and over the next 10 years. Our initial target from 6 million is we're massively exceed that, 6 million children. And we continually innovating new programs. We're registered as an international charity now. We're registered in the United States as well as the UK. We have global partners in over 30 countries. And like I said, we're just getting warmed up. So I have an amazing team, and they are so passionate, and they inspire me every day. and the average age is, I think, 25. But they've moved into what we do, embrace what we do, and they work so hard in long hours. But they believe in what we do so much. They have so much purpose around our outcomes that it truly inspires me. So SolarBuddy has a wonderful future ahead of it. I'm very proud of that. I'm looking forward to watching everybody that works for SolarBuddy and all the children that we support and provide lights to follow their educational outcomes and see them over the next few years graduate because they studied longer and had a safer environment to study in. That to me is super exciting. I can't wait till we have our first SolarBuddy recipient graduating from university and hopefully working back in their communities as a doctor or nurse, Sarah, and doing some wonderful work in their own communities. So yeah, that's us.
Great. I can also relate to having an amazing team that gives me a lot of hope for the future. And you all have like very optimistic outlooks, and that's inspiring hope in myself, and I'm sure all of our audience. To conclude my questions, because I'm sure all of you have your own questions, what is one piece of advice you would make to our future change makers wanting to make a difference? If you just leave them with one thing.
I'll stew that. I'll just go and get a glass of water while I stew that one.
Okay.
Did you want to go, Sarah? Yeah.
I usually say, deal with your dead cats quickly, which has particular set of circumstances in the world I'm in, because our chairman actually, who's from Kirikora, which is Australia's remotest community, rang and he said, I'm coming to town and I'm going to cook you all lunch. And it's been 17 years and Bobby West has never offered to cook anything, but he's the boss. So I said, thanks, Bobby, that'd be great. And he giggled. And the next day, an enormous frozen feral cat that he had hunted and killed came into the Purple House and was cooked in the fire and was chucked on the kitchen bench and carved up, and he made us all pussycat sandwiches for lunch. But and that particular day we had a busload of school kids from Bellingen visiting the Purple House, and I thought they're going to completely freak out, but they all tried roasted pussycat. And then we had a busload of old ladies on a line dancing tour of Central Australia who'd come to boot scoot for us. Not so many of them tried pussycat. But I think, so in the Purple House, deal with your dead cats quickly has a particular significance. But in general, I think don't procrastinate on the things that you're putting off doing. Just get it off your plate so you can move on to things, and get it out of your head so you can move on to the things that you really enjoy. And it tastes like lamb, by the way, if anyone wanted to know. And I've done it once, I don't have to do it again.
Great. David or Simon?
Yeah, I think I can go, Simon. So yeah, if I think of probably my idol when it comes to entrepreneur, it's actually my grandfather who, 1952 came out from Italy, arrived here, and they just couldn't speak the language. I just can't get through my head how they did it in terms of just integrating. And they, from an entrepreneur point of view, he literally built and started a supermarket simply because everyone needs to eat. So I just think in terms of that courage, I just think of what Papa did. It's just extraordinary, and I think it keeps me going. And it's just a beautiful story that I reflect on and keeps me going. So certainly the resilience, but I come back to the message of, I think the beauty of the world that you're living in right now versus probably what I was living in when I was going to Monash is that you can start anything you want. with very little cost. It's just your time. And I think that's amazing. Back then it was, bricks and mortar. Now you can start anything. So I think my message is just to have a crack, really. Learn along the way and enjoy it and figure out what you do like and figure out what you don't like.
Yeah, I'll second that. I got two or three. One is you will fail, you will stumble, you will have difficulties, but it's not how many times you do fail or you do stumble, how many times you get back up, you dust yourself down, and you go again. I've been involved in many businesses over years, and some have had wonderful success, but many have had, they shut up shop and you dust yourself down and you go again. Perseverance is a huge thing. But in this context, for me, I've said it probably 20 times tonight already. Once you identify what your aim is and what your purpose is, believe it so much, live it so much, breathe it so much that it actually hurts, that you can't live without it. Because when you think about it, and I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about my purpose, because it radiates out of me. I believe it so much. I live it every second of the day. That people can't turn away from that. They find it quite infectious. So that's the biggest takeout I would give you, is your passion is your driver. And David's mentioned his wife 3 or 4 or 5 times tonight. So obviously they have such a joined purpose that probably magnifies their drive and their vision, but also what attracts people to have to do what they need to do. And it's very, very important. So embrace it, own it, but never lose it as well.
Thanks, Simon. That was a great ending to my portion. Very inspirational. I have goosebumps too. So now I'll take some questions from the audience. So either type it in the chat, or if you want to ask it verbally, just raise your hand and then I can select people. First off is Sean asks, how did you go about picking your team or your co-founders in terms of their trust and work ethic?
SolarBuddy, I think, has 15 people now working for us, and I could probably hire another 100 tomorrow. And I think that is one answer to the question. We've hired people through HR companies, but almost every single buddy that works for us has come to us. They've felt a pull towards us. They've heard us speak or heard us present or heard about us on the news or whatever and felt that pull, which is a wonderful thing to be able to say. That builds trust. There's obviously people that have ulterior motives, but not necessarily in this industry. But if anybody is compelled to reach out to an organization like ours to offer volunteering support, which Joanna has, to join our community and our movement and whatever it is we want to call it, and work really hard, it's in their backbones to have a strong work ethic. It's in their core to be trustworthy. And that's a wonderful element of being able to work in this space and do the work that we do, whether it's energy poverty or it's Indigenous health or it's homelessness or whatever it is. You attract the right people generally. So yeah, that's my answer to that. It's not always successful. It's not always foolproof. But it certainly is a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable to surround yourself with people that share a common purpose than other businesses I've been involved in that aren't so socially driven. So.
Great. Sarah?
So I was going to say there's an international shortage of dialysis nurses, and we've got a queue. We've got a queue of people wanting to work for us, and I just agree. I think if the culture of the organisation is strong, and if the mission of the organisation is clear, then then you attract the right sort of people. They're not coming for the pay. They're not coming for an easy life. There's something else that's bringing them. I have a list. I have people out there who are going to be sucked into the Purple House vortex one day. It might not be quite their time yet. But yeah, I think that success builds on success, and a strong, supportive culture will attract the right people. And then you're really clear on probationary periods, and you're not scared to get rid of people if they don't fit. Because if you miss that period and get stuck with them, then it gets really hard. So spend lots of time on orientation and support. And if it looks like the person's not a good fit, then suggest they go and find something else to do before it becomes more difficult, would be my advice.
David?
Yeah, for me, in terms of if it's not working out, it's a bit hard to kick out Laura, but Sarah, but the topic does come up occasionally. But anyway, we'll park that conversation alone. No, I think Laura's talent. She's Simon's probably read between the lines. She's the brains. She's definitely exceptionally smart when it comes to, I guess, both creating ideas and just executing. And no one's better at hustling than Laura. And yeah, Go Kindly wouldn't be around if it wasn't for Laura. Having said that, like, I think we work well together in general. But I think the beauty of probably our unique relationship is that we can be honest and brutally honest. And we have got a good balance in terms of one intuitively knows in terms of whether, the other one's having a hard day. It's tough at the moment. Everyone's going through ups and downs. So I think that's working really well in terms of for the business, because it just continues on. So yeah, so having that unique relationship, I in terms of being married to my co-founder, I would say, yeah, definitely some challenges, but just the positives, yeah, far outweigh it. And but yeah, we continue to have robust discussions and continue to challenge each other, and I think that works out really well.
Yeah, and I think the team is very crucial to how your business does or how your project does. So that's a really great question, Hashan.
Quote here, it's on my phone. I carry this on my phone. This is a great summary of the three points we've just made. Has everyone heard of Simon Sinek? Does everyone know who Simon Sinek is? If you don't,
Yes.
then I encourage you to watch Simon Sinek on YouTube and read his books. He's an amazing person. But he has a very famous quote. It says, "You don't hire for skills, you hire for attitude. You can always teach skills." And as far as I'm concerned, that's it in a nutshell. Certainly in this space, in where we're talking about. Attitude is everything. You can learn the skills on the job. But if you come with an overabundance of skills with no attitude, then it's a pretty clear exit sign for me. So.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. Nick asks, what has been one of your proudest achievements or rewarding moments in your journey so far?
Go on, Sarah.
I think there's too many, but certainly change the Medicare item number is not just for us, it's for the whole of remote Australia. And Medicare item numbers don't disappear with who's Prime Minister this week or next week. They're there for the long haul. And so basically the work that we've done has allowed Aboriginal communities from across remote Australia to look now seriously at getting their family members back home. And it broke lots of the rules of Medicare to do it. So certainly on a big scale, then it's that. It's that the model that we created has been recognised and is now available across Australia. But then just lots and lots of little things, you know, everything from old people who survived 20 years longer than anyone predicted that they'd survive, to young fellas with kidney disease who were really disengaged and scared with the hospital system, and the Purple Houses just managed to swoop them up and love them up. Unconditional love. Doesn't matter if you come in and steal the CEO's credit card and go on a rampage around town buying KFC. You can still come back to the Purple House and we'll still look after you the day after. So it's, I mean, and at the basis of that, it's about the relationships. You know, you can work yourself silly and be, I'm a little teapot naked up a corner, and people will find someone else to come in and take over your job. But it's about the relationships you've built and the skills that you've passed on to other people that will outlive you.
Simon or David?
Go on, David.
I think in terms of where Sarah was going, in terms of there's definitely lots of things along the way. Like today's been, I won't go too deep, but today's been actually quite successful. Even though we have not made one sale, we've created a number of leads that could be significant for the business. But in terms of the proudest moment, if I reflect on it, it was probably just after Christmas when we sat down with the CEO of Wish and one of our charity partners, and we just had a chat in terms of the impact of our donations during that period. And we, and it was just amazing. Jay just went into a number of stories, and one in particular hit home in terms of the money that they then passed on through vouchers to young mums to buy just some Christmas gifts for their kids. And just for that moment, they could have, I guess, a normal life. And I think that was pretty special. Just it was only a small gift, but it was just huge in terms of hearing the impact and what that must have meant, not just to the mum, but also to the child. I think, just hearing those stories was just, it's hard not to get a bit emotional about it. It's just, it's extraordinary.
Most proudest achievement or rewarding moment. It's very hard to pick one, to be perfectly honest with you. Every day when we get a new letter from a child somewhere in Australia or elsewhere in the world that they've written to their new SolarBuddy and what it means to provide a gift of light to somebody, a child that they will never meet in a faraway land, brings a smile to our faces every day. You know, those are the magical little moments that you add them all up, create an organization that does what we do every day. And that to me is probably my proudest achievements. The proudest achievement is creating an environment that energizes people, both children that create the letters and the lights for the children that receive the letters and the lights, but also my team and everyone in between that gets energized from that journey. I'm really proud about that. I'm proud to be able to stand behind my team and watch them be amazing. That is magnificent for me. I love it every day when I do that. But from a real personal point of view, in my career, apart from developing SolarBuddy, I think sitting on the committee at UNHCR and not leaving the room until very senior people in the United Nations had signed off on swapping out boxes of matches as a core relief item for every refugee on the planet to become a solar light, and arguing hours over hours and hours to the point that my job was on the line, or my contracts are on the line, but getting that across the line. So a solar light is now a core relief item for all refugees in the world. that's probably my most poignant moment in my career, because it has a long-lasting effect on so many people.
And with that very inspirational answer, I think I will end the Q&A there. Remember to stay behind if you have any more questions for our speakers. I'd like to thank Sarah, Simon, and David for taking the time to share their insight into having a business with a strong set of ethical principles. We learned about being driven by purpose, how to persevere, how to make change by ourselves and through our interaction with and participation in ethical businesses, and consequently create like a really bright and positive future. Do any of our panelists have concluding remarks they want to make or promote anything that's going on right now?
So you can follow some stories and some fun of the Purple House on the Purple House Facebook page. We've only got 11,500 friends on Facebook, which my kids tell me is pathetic. So if you want to like the page, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I reckon, I mean, we got to have a bit of a chat to some of you before this started. And I'd just like to say, I know some of you, this is your last year of uni and things are quite difficult with coronavirus and changing plans. But yeah, just good luck and stick with it. And you'll all be able to go out and go to the pub and get pissed one day. It won't last forever. Thanks for having me. What an illustrious crew I've been sharing a panel with.
David?
Echo those sentiments. And it's been a joy just to, be able to meet yourselves and obviously Simon and Sarah. And it's, I think it's, like I say, and I think Simon touched on this, it is unfortunately going to be a really tough time for a lot of people, including yourselves, but it's also too like just creating a new world, and I truly believe it will be a better world. With yourselves at the driving seat, like it's exciting to see, and I truly do wish you well. And feel free to reach out and stay connected. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know.
And buy a pillow.
Yeah, and buy a pillow. You can buy a pillow. But yeah, I'd love to follow your journey too. So all the best.
Yeah, I'll second that. I will. Have you got outlets up in Brisbane, David?
Yes, so we'll send anywhere in Australia.
Okay, all right.
Unfortunately, we can't at the moment guarantee a speedy delivery, but we will express post it, which in this day and age means it'll take a week or two. But yeah.
I'll order some tonight. Sure.
Thanks.
From my point of view, this has been a really interesting evening. I'm not here to spruik anything or sell anything, but if you have a look on our website, if you have a look at my LinkedIn, you'll see the various things that we're involved in and what we're trying to achieve. I'm sure you're smart enough and crazy enough to see how you can potentially fit in and help us. So yeah, just have a look at what we do. Jo's based in Melbourne, so she's there. More than happy to come in and engage with a wider audience if you would like that. But there's many ways you can help us, help children, and just keep that at the front of your mind. But spread the word and keep being innovative and thinking positively, and let's change the world.
We will definitely focus on spreading the word. Thanks to our audience today. We hope you enjoyed our first event. Feel free to DM on our socials with any feedback you have, and stay safe, everybody.
Yeah.
Cheers. Have a good
Thanks
evening.
all. Cheers.